Thous the night slowly settles in, and everything becomes calm and quiet. It's the perfect moment to listen to a fairy tale, a story that has been softly told from one generation to the next. Tonight, we will journey together into a realm where towering isolation meets the tender heart of hope, where a lost voice finds its way through the wilderness, and where love, against all odds, blooms brighter than the most enchanted garden. Feel the gentle weight of the blanket, perhaps, as the world outside your window hushes itself to sleep, preparing for the magic that only stories can bring. The air might grow cool, carrying the faint scent of night-blooming jasmine, or perhaps the quiet comfort of your own warm space. But before the story truly begins, you should get comfortable. Take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. So make yourself comfortable, let the outside world fade away, and let tonight's story begin. Settle in, relax, and allow the quiet magic of the tale to carry you through the night. Long, long ago, in a quaint, sun-drenched village, nestled beside a whisper-quiet forest, lived a husband and wife who yearned for a child. Their days were filled with simple joys and the gentle rhythms of village life, but a quiet longing hummed beneath it all, a tender ache for the pitter-patter of tiny feet. Their little cottage, though cozy and warm, often felt just a touch too silent in the evenings, a space waiting to be filled with laughter and lullabies. They were good, kind-hearted folk, and their neighbors often spoke of their patience and their unwavering hope, even as years turned into decades. Then, one glorious spring morning, a miracle unfolded. The wife discovered she was with child. A wave of joy, so profound it brought tears to her eyes, washed over them both. Their little world was instantly transformed, painted with hues of anticipation and the soft glow of a future finally within reach. The husband doted on her, ensuring her comfort, whispering sweet promises to the tiny life growing within her. The air in their home seemed to hum with a new, vibrant energy, a silent symphony of impending parenthood. As the weeks gently unfurled, however, a peculiar and intense craving began to take hold of the expectant mother. It wasn't for ordinary delights or common treats. Her eyes, often dreamy and distant, were drawn irresistibly to the magnificent garden next door. This garden wasn't like any other in the village. It belonged to a powerful sorceress known only as Mother Gothel, a woman whose name was spoken in hushed tones, her presence a silent, formidable shadow over their quiet community. Her garden was a riot of color and fragrance, a wonderland of rare herbs, exotic flowers, and ancient gnarled trees, all protected by a tall, unbreachable wall. To even glance at it, too long felt like an act of defiance, a transgression of unseen boundaries. But among the myriad wonders of Mother Gothel's domain, one plant in particular captured the pregnant wife's entire being. It was a bed of fresh, vibrant Rapunzel, a delicate, leafy green, also known as lamb's lettuce or corn salad, that thrived in the cool, shaded patches of the sorceress's meticulously kept grounds. The leaves were a deep, inviting emerald, glistening with dew, and to the wife's heightened senses, they seemed to exude an almost magical aroma, a scent that promised relief, sustenance, and an end to the gnawing hunger that had taken root deep within her. The craving became an obsession, a relentless, all-consuming yearning that left her pale, weak, and utterly distraught. She spoke of little else, her voice a desperate whisper, her eyes fixed on the forbidden greenery. "Oh," she would sigh, her voice faint, "if only I could taste the Rapunzel from Mother Gothel's garden. I feel as though I would recover, but without it, I fear I shall surely die." Her husband, watching her decline with growing alarm and a heavy heart, felt a knot of dread tighten in his stomach. He loved his wife more than anything, and the thought of losing her, especially now, was unbearable. He knew the fearsome reputation of Mother Gothel, understood the unspoken dangers of even approaching her property. Yet, the sight of his beloved wasting away, her once bright spirit dimming with each passing day, spurred him to a desperate resolve. He had to act. He had to help her. One twilight evening, as the last slivers of orange bled into the deep purples of the sky, casting long, shifting shadows, he decided. With a pounding heart and trembling hands, he scaled the formidable garden wall. Each brick felt cold and unforgiving beneath his fingers. Each climb a testament to his love and his fear. He moved like a phantom, careful not to disturb a single leaf or pebble, his breath held tight in his chest. Reaching the Rapunzel bed, he quickly gathered a generous handful of the succulent leaves, their coolness a strange contrast to the heat of his anxiety. As stealthily as he had entered, he made his escape, his heart still thrumming a frantic rhythm. The moment his wife tasted the stolen greens, a flicker of life returned to her eyes. The Rapunzel was even more delicious than she had imagined, a burst of fresh, earthy flavor that soothed her craving, if only for a short while. But the relief was fleeting. The next day, the craving returned with renewed intensity, a hunger more ravenous than before. The husband knew what he had to do. He couldn't bear to see her suffer again. That very night, under the cloak of deepest darkness, he returned to Mother Gothel's garden. His movements were more practiced this time, fueled by a renewed sense of urgency. But as he reached the Rapunzel bed and began to gather the precious leaves, a chilling voice cut through the stillness of a night, cold and sharp as a winter wind. "How dare you?" it hissed, echoing from the shadows. "How dare you creep into my garden like a thief and steal my Rapunzel?" The husband froze, his blood turning to ice. Mother Gothel herself stood before him, her eyes gleaming with an ancient, formidable power. Her presence filled the air, thick with a sense of danger and unspoken magic. He fell to his knees, his hands clasped together, fear making his voice crack. "Oh, please forgive me," he stammered, his words tumbling out in a desperate rush. "I only did it out of dire necessity. My wife is expecting a child, and she has been overcome by an insatiable longing for the Rapunzel in your garden. Without it, she fears she will die. I couldn't let her perish." Mother Gothel listened, her expression unreadable, her gaze piercing. The silence that followed stretched interminably, heavy with unspoken threats. Finally, she spoke, her voice still chilling, but with a subtle shift, a hint of something calculating. "If it is as you say," she pronounced, her words slow and deliberate, "then I will allow you to take all the Rapunzel your wife desires. But there is a condition. You must give me the child you are expecting. I will care for it like a mother, and it will want for nothing." The husband was aghast. The idea of giving away his precious unborn child, the very being they had longed for, was unthinkable, a horror beyond measure. But as he looked into Mother Gothel's unwavering eyes, sensing the immense power she wielded, and remembering his wife's desperate pallor, a terrible realization dawned. He had walked into a trap, and there was no escape. The choice, if it could even be called a choice, was stark: sacrifice his child or risk losing both his wife and unborn baby to the sorceress's wrath, perhaps even his own life. The crushing weight of the bargain settled upon him. a dark, heavy blanket. In his terror and despair, feeling utterly trapped and helpless, he agreed. He nodded, a single, agonizing motion that sealed their fate. Mother Gothel's lips curved into a thin, satisfaction-filled smile, a chilling sight in the moonlit garden. He gathered the Rapunzel, his hands shaking, his heart a raw, bleeding wound. He returned to his wife, bringing her the leaves, but carrying with him a secret so heavy, so profound, it threatened to crush his very soul. He did not tell her of the pact, could not bear to voice the terrible price they were destined to pay. For now, the taste of the Rapunzel brought her temporary relief, but the seed of their future sorrow had been irrevocably sown. The remaining weeks of the wife's pregnancy unfolded in a delicate balance of joy and unspoken dread. The husband, though relieved to see his beloved's health restored, carried the heavy secret of his bargain like a stone in his heart. He watched her, radiant with the glow of impending motherhood, and felt a profound sadness mingle with his love, knowing the terrible fate that awaited their child. He tried to push the thoughts away, to focus only on the present warmth of their shared anticipation. But the memory of Mother Gothel's cold, calculating eyes and the chill of her voice lingered. A constant, low hum of fear beneath the surface of his daze. The wife, oblivious to the monstrous pact, dreamed of cradling her baby, of tiny fingers curling around her own, her world painted in soft hues of maternal love. Then, one moonlit evening, as the scent of night jasmine drifted through their open window, the child was born. It was a girl, perfect in every way, with delicate features, tiny grasping hands, and a sweet, soft cry that instantly filled their cottage with a sound more precious than any melody. The parents gazed at her, their hearts overflowing with an almost unbearable tenderness. They named her Rapunzel, a gentle echo of the very plant that had inadvertently led to her existence, a name whispered with both adoration and a quiet hidden grief by her father. Their moment of pure, unadulterated joy, however, was tragically brief. Almost as if summoned by the baby's first breath, a shadow fell across their threshold. Mother Gothel appeared, her presence filling the small room with a chilling, tangible power. She stood in the doorway, her gaze fixed on the newborn, her expression one of cold, unwavering resolve. There was no argument, no plea, no negotiation to be made. The bargain had been struck, and the fearsome sorceress had come to claim what was hers. The parents, overwhelmed by terror and a crushing sense of helplessness, could only watch. Their voices choked with despair as Mother Gothel gently but firmly took the baby from her mother's arms. The mother's heart shattered into a million pieces, a silent scream trapped in her throat, as she watched her precious daughter, her little Rapunzel, carried away into the deepening night. The cottage, once so full of life and hope, was plunged into a desolate, echoing silence, forever marked by the sound of a departing lullaby that would never be sung. Mother Gothel raised Rapunzel not as a mother would a beloved child, but as a prized possession, a rare and beautiful treasure to be guarded fiercely from the world. She carried the infant back to her secluded abode, a place hidden deep within the whispering woods, far from the prying eyes of the village. Rapunzel grew up in complete isolation, her only companion the sorceress, whose stern devotion was laced with a possessiveness that allowed no other influence. The world outside, as far as Rapunzel knew, was a dangerous, wicked place, full of terrible people and unimaginable threats. Mother Gothel painted vivid, frightening pictures of what lay beyond their secluded dwelling, instilling in the girl a deep-seated fear of anything and anyone not within the sorceress's protective, albeit suffocating, embrace. Every day, Rapunzel's reality was shaped by Mother Gothel's words and rules. She learned to read from ancient, dusty tomes that spoke of forgotten spells and distant lands, but never of companionship or shared laughter. She learned to tend to the exotic plants in the garden, mimicking the sorceress's careful touch, but never truly understanding the vibrant, thriving life that surrounded her. Her days were a quiet rhythm of lessons and chores, punctuated by Mother Gothel's watchful gaze. There were no playmates, no other children to share secrets with, no gentle embraces from a loving father. Her understanding of love was skewed, distorted by Mother Gothel's controlling affection, which often felt more like ownership than genuine warmth. As Rapunzel blossomed into a young girl, her beauty became truly remarkable. Her eyes were the color of the clearest summer sky, her skin like porcelain, and her spirit, despite her isolation, was surprisingly pure and gentle. But it was her hair that was truly extraordinary. From a very young age, it had grown at an astonishing rate, shimmering like spun gold, finer than silk, and possessed of a luminous quality that seemed to capture and reflect the very sunlight. Mother Gothel, with an almost ritualistic care, would brush and braid it, muttering to herself about its unique properties, its growing length, and the secret power she knew it possessed. She understood that this glorious cascade of golden hair was not merely beautiful, it was the key to her continued control over Rapunzel, a precious commodity. When Rapunzel turned 12 years old, a significant age for any child, Mother Gothel decided that the secluded dwelling was no longer secure enough. The world, she reasoned, was too tempting, too dangerous for a girl of such singular beauty. The girl's innocence, her burgeoning grace, and most importantly, her magnificent hair, needed absolute protection from any outside influence. She wanted to ensure that Rapunzel remained solely hers, untouched and untainted by the corrupting forces of human connection. So, Mother Gothel took Rapunzel deep into the darkest heart of the forest, to a place where ancient trees stood sentinel, their branches interwoven like gnarled fingers. There, rising majestically above the dense canopy, stood a tower unlike any other. It was an imposing structure of gray stone, incredibly tall, reaching towards the sky like a silent, lonely monument. What made it truly unique, however, was its construction. It had no door. The only opening was a single small window, high up, near the very top, offering a meager glimpse of the world from an immense, dizzying height. Rapunzel, though accustomed to isolation, felt a tremor of fear ripple through her as she stood before the towering edifice. It looked so stark, so impenetrable, so utterly alone. The air around it felt different, heavy with a profound silence that spoke of endless solitude. Mother Gothel, observing the girl's trepidation, offered no comfort, only a stern reminder of the dangers outside, reinforcing the idea that this tower was for Rapunzel's own safety, a sanctuary from unseen evils. Obedient and unquestioning, as she had been taught to be her entire life, Rapunzel allowed herself to be led to the base of the tower. Then, with a powerful chant and a flick of her hand, Mother Gothel caused Rapunzel's impossibly long golden hair to magically detach from her head and then reattach, growing even longer, seemingly without limit. It was an unnerving sight, the golden strands coiling and uncoiling like a living thing. Mother Gothel then commanded Rapunzel to let down her hair. The girl, her heart aflutter with a mix of awe and bewilderment, watched as the sorceress grasped the shimmering braid, a rope of pure gold, and with surprising strength pulled herself up, hand over hand, until she disappeared through the high window. It was a bizarre, almost unbelievable spectacle, a secret known only to them. From that day forward, the tower became Rapunzel's entire world. Her life was defined by the 4 stone walls, the small window, and the vast, empty sky above. Days blurred into weeks, and weeks into months, marked only by the shifting patterns of sunlight through her window, and the routine visits, from Mother Gothel. The sorceress would arrive each day, standing at the base of the tower, and call out in a distinct, piercing voice that echoed through the forest, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." And Rapunzel, from her high perch, would unbraid her magnificent golden tresses, which by now had grown to an incredible length, perhaps 20 ells, or even more. She would let them tumble down a shimmering cascade of gold until they reached the ground, forming a soft, golden ladder. Mother Gothel would then grasp the strong strands and climb, her weight seemingly no burden to the magical hair, until she was safely inside with Rapunzel. Inside the tower, Rapunzel tried to make her space as comforting as possible, decorating it with wildflowers she carefully cultivated in small pots, and weaving intricate patterns with stray strands of her own hair. But despite these efforts, the loneliness was an ever-present companion, a quiet, pervasive ache. Her only connection to the bustling, vibrant world she had been taught to fear was the distant murmur of the forest, the occasional song of a bird, and the endless expanse of the sky. With no one to talk to, no stories to share, Rapunzel found solace in the only way she knew how. She sang, her voice sweet and clear and pure as a silver bell, would often drift from the high window, carrying melodies of longing and innocent sorrow on the wind, a solitary sound echoing through the silent, enchanted woods. High above the forest floor, nestled within her lonely stone prison, Rapunzel found her truest voice. Without companions, without stories shared around a crackling fire, her feelings and dreams poured out in song. Her melodies were not merely sounds. They were shimmering tapestries woven from solitude, woven from the vastness of the sky she gazed upon, and from the quiet longings of a heart untouched by the world. Her voice was like the purest spring water, clear and cool, carrying a haunting beauty that drifted on the forest breezes. Sometimes it was a lament, soft as a sigh, for a world she only imagined. Other times it was a hopeful tune, bright as sunlight filtering through leaves, a testament to her resilient spirit. The birds would often cease their own chirping to listen, perched on nearby branches, their tiny heads tilted in silent appreciation, as if understanding the unspoken emotions carried within her notes. Her singing became her solace, her confidant, and her only whisper of connection to something beyond her stone walls. Many miles away, in a flourishing kingdom vibrant with life, lived a young prince. He was known not only for his noble bearing and kind heart, but also for his thoughtful, adventurous spirit. Unlike many princes who might spend their days in royal courts or on grand hunting expeditions, this prince often sought quieter pursuits. He enjoyed riding his magnificent white steed through the ancient, sprawling forests that bordered his realm, finding peace and inspiration amidst the rustling leaves and dappled sunlight. He reveled in the solitude, allowing his mind to wander, to ponder the mysteries of the world, and to listen to the whispers of nature. He appreciated the quiet majesty of the towering trees, the gentle flow of hidden streams, and the subtle shift of light through the canopy. One afternoon, as the sun began its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of orange and rose, the prince was riding deep within a less frequented part of the forest. The air was still, thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. Suddenly, a sound, unlike anything he had ever heard, drifted through the trees. It was a voice, pure and ethereal, carrying a melody that seemed to weave itself directly into the fabric of his soul. It was a song of such exquisite beauty, so poignant and yet so hopeful, that it halted his horse mid-stride. The prince, accustomed to the melodious calls of birds and the rustle of the wind, was utterly captivated. This was human, yes, but imbued with a clarity and a pathos that felt almost divine, like a forgotten echo from a dream. He dismounted, tethering his horse to a sturdy oak, and began to follow the sound. His heart beat with a gentle anticipation, drawn by the irresistible siren call of the voice. The melody seemed to lead him deeper into the densest part of the forest, where the trees grew taller and closer together, their branches forming a leafy green cathedral. He moved carefully, his boots crunching softly on the forest floor, his gaze constantly sweeping upwards, searching for the source of this wondrous sound. The air grew cooler here, touched by the shadows of the ancient wood. After what felt like an eternity, but was perhaps only a short while, he emerged into a small, secluded clearing. And there it was. Before him stood an impossibly tall, majestic tower, constructed of dark, unyielding stone, rising sharply against the fading light of the sky. It was a structure of stark beauty, almost defiant in its isolation. But what truly struck him, aside from its immense height, was its utter lack of a door. No entrance marred its smooth, imposing walls. The only opening visible was a tiny window, positioned impossibly high, a mere dark slit against the grey stone, from which the glorious singing poured forth, a golden thread unwinding into the quiet forest air. The prince felt a profound sense of awe and perplexity. How could anyone live in such a place? How could they enter or leave? His mind, usually so quick to reason, grappled with the mystery. He circled the tower, his eyes scanning every inch of its surface, but found no hidden archway, no secret passage. It was truly a doorless fortress, a stone enigma. He understood then that this was no ordinary dwelling, and the voice that emanated from it belonged to no ordinary maiden. A profound curiosity, laced with wonder, settled deep within him. He longed to know the secret of the tower, and even more, to see the face of the woman whose voice could stir such emotions. He knew he couldn't simply walk away. The melody had woven its way too deeply into his thoughts, creating an indelible impression. Determined to uncover the mystery, he decided to wait. He found a secluded spot among a cluster of ancient, moss-covered trees, where the dense foliage offered perfect concealment. He settled down, making himself as comfortable as possible, his senses acutely attuned to his surroundings, patiently prepared to observe. The forest gradually darkened, and the first stars began to prick through the twilight sky. The singing continued, a gentle lullaby for the fading day, until, with the last vestiges of light, it finally ceased. The silence that followed felt vast and profound, but the echo of the song still resonated within the prince's memory. He waited, scarcely daring to breathe as the night deepened around him. Then, as the moon climbed higher, casting silver light through the trees, he saw a figure approach the tower. It was an old woman, her form cloaked and shadowy, her movements deliberate and precise. He recognized her from hushed whispers in the village. Mother Gothel. A shiver ran down his spine. Her reputation preceded her, carrying with it tales of dark magic and formidable power. The air around her seemed to ripple with a subtle energy. Mother Gothel stopped at the base of the tower, her face upturned towards the impossibly high window. Then, her voice sharp and commanding, sliced through the quiet night, its cadence distinct and unforgettable. Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair. The prince watched in stunned disbelief as, moments later, something truly extraordinary occurred. From the high window, a cascade of shimmering golden hair, impossibly long and radiant, unfurled. It descended slowly, like a silken rope of pure sunlight, catching the moonlight as it fell, until its very end rested gently on the ground beside Mother Gothel. It was a sight so fantastical, so utterly beyond the realm of ordinary experience, that for a moment the prince questioned if he was dreaming. With a practiced ease that suggested years of repetition, Mother Gothel grasped the thick golden braid. She pulled on it, testing its strength. Then, hand over hand, she began to ascend the sheer stone wall. Her form grew smaller and smaller as she climbed, until she reached the window and, with a final pull, disappeared inside, swallowed by the tower's shadow. The golden ladder then retracted, vanishing back into the darkness of the window, leaving the tower as silent and enigmatic as before. The prince remained hidden, his mind reeling from the spectacle he had just witnessed. His curiosity had been replaced by a dizzying blend of wonder, fascination, and a burgeoning sense of intrigue. He knew now the secret of the tower, or at least the secret of how to enter it. The beautiful voice, the golden hair, the doorless tower, and the fearsome sorceress. It all coalesced into a mysterious tapestry that called to him with an undeniable pull. He felt an undeniable urge to unravel this enigma, to meet the woman with the voice of an angel. He resolved that he would return, not just once, but many times, to observe, to learn, and perhaps to find a way to speak to the girl who lived within the high, lonely walls. The moon continued its silent journey across the sky, and the prince, filled with newfound purpose, made his quiet departure, leaving the tower to its secrets, but carrying a part of its magic within his heart. The prince, now armed with the secret of the golden ladder, could not shake the image of the towering fortress or the ethereal beauty of the voice that resided within. His days became a patient anticipation for the moment he could return to the secluded clearing. He returned almost every evening, concealing himself amongst the trees, observing Mother Gothel's ritual. He watched her call out, always with the same precise words, and saw Rapunzel's glorious hair descend, a beacon of gold in the twilight. Each time as the sorceress ascended, the prince felt a growing sense of injustice, a quiet indignation at the isolation of such a beautiful spirit. He heard Rapunzel's songs, now recognizing them as cries of silent longing, and his heart ached for her captivity. He longed to communicate with her, to offer a glimmer of hope, to simply tell her she was not alone. After many such observations, convinced he had mastered the method, the prince gathered his courage. One evening, after Mother Gothel had departed, leaving the tower once more in its silent vigil, he stepped out from the shadows, his heart pounded with a mixture of apprehension and unwavering determination. He stood at the base of the tower, looking up at the high, dark window, and took a deep breath. His voice, usually strong and clear, felt a little shaky as he called out, mimicking the sorceress's distinct cadence as best he could, though softened by his own gentle nature. "Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Let down your hair!" A moment of silence stretched, thick with suspense. Then, to his immense relief and wonder, the window above opened slightly. A stream of golden light seemed to pour forth, followed by the slow, graceful descent of the magnificent braid. It tumbled down, shining like spun moonlight, until it reached the ground beside him. The prince's hands trembled slightly as he reached out and grasped the warm, silky strands. He felt a surge of exhilaration, a sense of venturing into the unknown. With a strength born of pure resolve, he began to climb, pulling himself upwards, hand over hand, his gaze fixed on the small opening above. The ascent was arduous, but the thought of meeting the owner of that enchanting voice spurred him onward. Finally, he reached the window and pulled himself through, stepping into a dimly lit chamber. He stood blinking, allowing his eyes to adjust, and there she was, Rapunzel. She stood before him, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and bewilderment. Her golden hair, even more breathtaking up close, cascaded around her like a shimmering cloak. She was even more beautiful than his imagination had dared to conceive, her features delicate, her skin luminous, and her expression one of utter innocence and profound solitude. He saw a flicker of apprehension in her eyes, a reflection of her lifelong fear of the outside world, but also a nascent curiosity, a spark of the unknown. Rapunzel, never having seen another human being besides Mother Gothel, was at first frightened by the sudden appearance of this handsome stranger. She recoiled slightly, her breath catching in her throat. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a wild bird trapped in her chest. Everything Mother Gothel had ever told her about the dangers of the world outside rushed through her mind, filling her with a protective instinct to flee. Yet there was something in the prince's kind eyes, a gentle sincerity that tempered her fear. He was not grotesque or threatening, as the sorceress had described outsiders. He radiated a quiet strength, an unthreatening presence. Seeing her fear, the prince spoke gently, his voice soft and reassuring. "Do not be afraid, fair maiden. I mean you no harm. I am a prince, and I was drawn here by the most beautiful singing I have ever heard. Your voice, like a melody from paradise, has captivated my heart and led me to your solitary tower. I simply wish to know who possessed such a wondrous gift." His words, spoken with genuine admiration and kindness, slowly began to ease Rapunzel's apprehension. The fear in her eyes softened, replaced by a tentative curiosity. No one had ever spoken to her with such gentle respect, with such open wonder. Mother Gothel's words, while full of stern affection, were always laced with commands and warnings. This stranger offered something different, pure, unadulterated awe. She had spent her life hearing only the sorceress's voice, and now, to hear another, so warm and melodious, was a revelation. Overcoming her initial shock, Rapunzel found herself drawn to his gentle demeanor. She had been lonely for so long, had yearned for connection, even without truly understanding what it was. The prince, sensing her hesitation, did not press her, but simply sat down, allowing her to grow accustomed to his presence. He spoke of the world outside, not in frightening terms, but with stories of beautiful landscapes, bustling towns, and the kindness of ordinary people. He described forests alive with sunlight, and creatures, rivers that wound their way to the sea, and skies filled with countless stars. Tales that ignited a spark of wonder in Rapunzel's isolated heart. He spoke of music and laughter, of friendship and shared dreams. And Rapunzel, in turn, began to speak, her voice soft at first, then growing more confident. She told him of her life in the tower, of the endless days and nights, of the view from her high window, and of the songs she sang to fill the vast emptiness. She confided in him her quiet loneliness, her secret yearnings, and her simple observations of the natural world she could only glimpse. They discovered a shared love for beauty, for poetry, and for the quiet contemplation of the world. They talked for hours, the moon climbing higher outside the window, until the first faint hint of dawn began to touch the eastern sky. As the prince prepared to leave, a profound connection had already begun to form between them. Their initial meeting had blossomed into a fragile yet undeniable bond. He promised to return, and Rapunzel, her heart now fluttering with a new, exhilarating sensation, eagerly agreed. She felt a lightness she had never known, a sense of joy that shimmered like her own golden hair. From that day forward, the prince returned to the tower every evening, always waiting until Mother Gothel had departed, before calling out for Rapunzel. Each secret ascent was a testament to his growing affection. With each visit, their love deepened, blooming quietly yet fiercely in the solitude of the tower. He brought her little gifts, a fragrant wildflower from the forest, a smooth, polished stone, a piece of silken fabric, small tokens of the world she had never known, each one cherished by Rapunzel. He shared stories of his kingdom, of festivals and grand feasts, of the challenges and joys of his royal duties. He painted vibrant pictures of a life beyond stone walls, igniting a yearning for freedom within her. Rapunzel, in turn, shared her deepest thoughts and feelings with him. She showed him her delicate floral arrangements, her intricate tapestries woven from natural fibers she collected from the wind-blown leaves. Her voice, once laden with a subtle melancholy, now shone with a newfound joy and hope. She laughed more freely, her eyes sparkling with a happiness that transformed her already stunning beauty. The tower, once a prison, became a sanctuary of their burgeoning love, a secret garden where their hearts intertwined. One day, as they sat together, bathed in the soft glow of twilight filtering through the window, the prince spoke of his love and his desire to free her. "Rapunzel," he said, taking her hand gently, "my heart belongs to you entirely. I cannot bear to see you confined here any longer. Will you be my wife and come with me to my kingdom where we can live freely and happily ever after?" Rapunzel, her eyes shining with tears of joy, returned his gaze with unwavering love. "Yes, my prince," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "I will gladly be your wife and go with you. But how shall I ever get down from this tower?" She remembered the terrifying height, the absence of stairs. The reality of her confinement, even with her love beside her, remained a formidable obstacle. They began to secretly devise a plan for her escape. Rapunzel, with her innate resourcefulness and the prince's practical mind, came up with a clever solution. "Each time you come," she suggested, "bring with you a skein of silk. I will weave them into a ladder. When it is long enough, I can descend and we can escape this place together." The prince, delighted by her ingenuity, readily agreed. The prospect of their future together, free from the sorceress's oppressive grasp, filled them with exhilarating hope. Each visit now carried a new purpose, a secret mission. He would bring a skein of silk, carefully concealed, and Rapunzel would painstakingly weave it into a ladder, knot by careful knot, her fingers working with a blend of determination and love. The silken ladder grew slowly, a tangible symbol of their shared dream, a shimmering thread of hope being spun into reality, inch by precious inch. The tower, once a place of despair, was now charged with the energy of their secret plan, their quiet whispers of a life together, far from the watchful, controlling eyes of Mother Gothel. The plan to weave a silken ladder, thread by precious thread, became the secret heartbeat of Rapunzel's days and the prince's nights. Each skein of silk the prince brought, carefully concealed beneath his cloak, represented a tangible step towards freedom, a whisper of a future where they could be truly together. Rapunzel, her fingers deft and quick, worked tirelessly, her hopes and dreams woven into every knot and every loop. The growing length of the ladder, slowly coiling in a hidden corner of her chamber, was a visible manifestation of their audacious plan, a beacon of defiance against the sorceress's control. Their love, nurtured in stolen moments, deepened with every shared secret, every hushed conversation about their impending escape. The tower, once a symbol of her eternal confinement, was now imbued with the thrilling tension of their conspiracy. However, despite their meticulous planning and their utmost discretion, the seeds of their secret began to subtly show. Rapunzel, once melancholic and quiet, now possessed a luminous joy, a sparkle in her eyes that even Mother Gothel's stern gaze could not entirely miss. Her songs, once imbued with a gentle sorrow, now carried notes of vibrant happiness, a subtle shift in melody that suggested a lightness of spirit Rapunzel had never known. Her demeanor, though still outwardly obedient, had a newfound confidence, a quiet strength that began to prick at Mother Gothel's hyper-vigilant senses. The sorceress, a creature of ancient cunning and keen observation, noticed these changes. She had raised Rapunzel in complete isolation, meticulously crafting her world to ensure absolute devotion and dependence. Any deviation from this carefully constructed reality was an immediate cause for alarm. Her proprietary love for Rapunzel was absolute, bordering on obsession, and she believed she possessed an infallible understanding of every nuance of the girl's being. This sudden, inexplicable blossoming of joy and inner peace deeply troubled her. She began to observe Rapunzel more closely, her eyes narrowed with suspicion, her mind working through possibilities that chilled her to the bone. One day, during one of Mother Gothel's daily visits, Rapunzel, in her newfound happiness and perhaps a moment of blissful distraction, spoke a careless word. It was a small slip, a tiny crack in the carefully maintained facade of her secluded life. But it was enough. "Tell me, Mother Gothel," Rapunzel began, her voice innocent, her mind still filled with the prince's recent visit. "How is it that you find it so much harder to climb up here than the young prince? He is always here in a moment." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implication, shattering the fragile peace of the tower. Mother Gothel froze, her eyes widening in disbelief, then narrowing into slits of pure, venomous fury. The blood drained from her face, replaced by a mask of horrified betrayal. The implications of Rapunzel's seemingly innocent questions struck her with the force of a physical blow. A prince, another person. Not only had Rapunzel dared to dream of a world beyond her, but she had betrayed her sacred isolation. The very air in the tower seemed to crackle with Mother Gothel's mounting rage. "You wretched child!" she shrieked, her voice a terrifying thunderclap that echoed through the stone chamber. Her hands, usually so gentle when tending to Rapunzel's hair, now trembled with unbridled wrath. "What is this I hear? A prince? You have deceived me. You have let a man enter my tower, your sanctuary, and dared to speak of him. You have opened your heart to an outsider, an enemy, and broken my trust, my absolute devotion." Her words were not just an outpouring of anger. They were laced with profound hurt, a twisted sense of betrayal from the object of her possessive affection. Her greatest fear, that Rapunzel would connect with the outside world, had materialized in the most devastating way possible. In that moment, Mother Gothel did not see a lonely young woman finding love. She saw a prized possession stolen, a betrayal of her meticulous control, a shattering of her carefully constructed world. In a fit of uncontrollable rage, her eyes blazing with a terrifying otherworldly light, Mother Gothel snatched up a pair of shears she used for trimming rare herbs. Her movements were swift, brutal, and devoid of any semblance of her usual measured grace. With two decisive, cruel snips, she cut off Rapunzel's magnificent golden hair, the very source of her power and her connection to the world below. The shimmering tresses, once Rapunzel's glory and her only means of escape, fell to the floor in a shimmering, lifeless heap, a heartbreaking symbol of her lost hope. The sound of the shears, sharp and final, echoed in the silent tower, a death knell for Rapunzel's dreams. Rapunzel cried out, a strangled sob of shock and agony. As the heavy weight of her hair lifted from her head, she felt exposed, vulnerable, and utterly devastated. Her heart pounded with terror as she watched her beautiful golden hair, now severed and lifeless, lying in a forlorn pile on the cold stone floor. It was a profound violation, a physical manifestation of her shattered hope and the cruel end of her secret love. But Mother Gothel's vengeance was not yet complete. Her anger, fueled by what she perceived as Rapunzel's ultimate betrayal, demanded a far harsher punishment. With a powerful, sweeping gesture, she conjured a swirling vortex of dark magic. Before Rapunzel could even react, she was snatched up and, with a terrifying lurch, transported far, far away from the tower, from the forest, from everything she had ever known. Mother Gothel banished her to a desolate, barren wilderness, a place of stark emptiness and relentless hardship, where she would be utterly alone, left to fend for herself, her golden hair gone, her spirit broken. The sorceress believed that in this brutal solitude, Rapunzel would truly learn the price of her disobedience, the cost of her fleeting dream of freedom. Having dispatched Rapunzel, Mother Gothel turned her malevolent attention to the prince. She knew he would return, and she intended to be ready. Her rage, though spent on Rapunzel, simmered beneath the surface, preparing for its next, even crueler act. She carefully gathered the severed golden hair, its magic still potent, even apart from Rapunzel's head. She coiled it, braided it, and waited. The tower, once a cage for Rapunzel, now became a trap set by the vengeful sorceress. As night fell, the prince, unaware of the horrific events that had transpired, rode through the forest with his customary eagerness. His heart was light, filled with thoughts of Rapunzel, of their silken ladder, and of their imminent escape. He pictured her smiling face, imagined her laughter echoing through the trees as they rode away together. He arrived at the base of the tower, calling out the familiar words, his voice tender with anticipation. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Immediately, the golden braid descended, just as always. The prince, his heart swelling with love, reached out and grasped it. He began his ascent, his movements quick and confident, fueled by the certainty that this would be one of his last clandestine climbs. He imagined Rapunzel waiting for him, her eyes sparkling, ready to embrace her freedom. But as he pulled himself through the window, he was met not by Rapunzel's gentle smile, but by the chilling, triumphant smirk of Mother Gothel. She stood there, her eyes gleaming with a terrible satisfaction, the severed golden hair still clutched in her hand, a mocking trophy of her cruel vengeance. The air in the chamber, once filled with the warmth of love, was now heavy with malice and the cold touch of despair. "Ah, you foolish prince," Mother Gothel hissed, her voice dripping with scorn and dark amusement. "You have come for your little bird, have you? Well, she is gone. The bird no longer sings in her nest. The cat has taken her, and will scratch out your eyes too." The prince, utterly stunned, stared at her, his mind struggling to comprehend her words, to grasp the horror of her revelation. The pit of his stomach churned with a sickening dread. He felt a wave of icy despair wash over him, understanding instantly that something terrible had happened, that his beautiful Rapunzel was gone. Before he could even process the full weight of her cruel words, Mother Gothel, with a guttural laugh that seemed to strip the hope from the very air, made a swift, horrifying move. She thrust the severed golden hair into his hands, disorienting him, and then, with blinding speed and a powerful dark spell, she flung him from the window. The prince cried out, a cry of shock, heartbreak, and sheer terror as he plummeted downwards, the golden hair slipping from his grasp, the tower receding above him. He fell, not onto the soft forest floor he had imagined, but onto a bed of sharp, unforgiving thorns that had magically sprung up around the tower's base, designed specifically for his punishment. The thorns pierced his eyes, blinding him instantly. A searing, agonizing pain ripped through him, plunging his world into immediate, profound darkness. His cries of agony mingled with the triumphant, cackling laughter of Mother Gothel, which echoed cruelly from the high window above. He lay there, broken and shattered, his sight stolen, his heart ripped apart, knowing that his beloved Rapunzel was lost to him, perhaps forever. The silence that followed Mother Gothel's wicked laughter was far more terrible than any sound, a profound emptiness that mirrored the darkness now consuming the prince's world. Plummeting from the impossible height of the tower, the prince's world had been plunged into instant, agonizing darkness. The searing pain as the thorns pierced his eyes was absolute. a white-hot agony that stole his sight and left him writhing in the forest's damp undergrowth. Mother Gothel's cruel, cackling laughter still echoed in his mind, a phantom sound that would haunt his waking thoughts and troubled dreams for years to come. But even greater than the physical torment was the crushing despair that settled over him. Rapunzel was gone. His beautiful, gentle Rapunzel, the light of his life, his secret hope, banished to a cruel, unknown fate by the vengeful sorceress. The thought of her suffering, alone and far away, tore at his already shattered heart. He lay there for what felt like an eternity, the throbbing pain in his eyes a constant reminder of his fate, the echoing emptiness a testament to his loss. The cool, damp earth beneath him offered no comfort, only a stark reality of his broken state. When finally his strength allowed, he pushed himself up, his hands instinctively reaching out into the void, searching for something, anything, familiar. But there was nothing. Only the cold, dark silence of the forest. He was utterly alone, blind, and adrift in a world that had suddenly become a terrifying, impenetrable black. With no guide, no path, and no purpose beyond the hollow ache of his grief, the blinded prince began to wander. He stumbled through the dense forest, his once proud bearing replaced by a hesitant, fearful shuffle. Each step was an act of courage, a leap of faith into an unseen world. The forest, once a place of tranquil beauty and thoughtful solitude, now became a hostile labyrinth, a bewildering maze of unseen obstacles. Twigs snapped underfoot, roots snaked out to trip him, and the rustling leaves, once a soothing whisper, now sounded like mocking voices in the darkness. He felt the rough bark of trees beneath his trembling fingers, the cold splash of unseen puddles, the sharp brush of unseen thorns. He was no longer a prince, but a lost soul, a wanderer condemned to an endless night. Days blurred into weeks, and weeks into months. Time lost its meaning, measured only by the changing scents of the forest, the warmth of the sun on his face, or the chilling touch of rain. He survived on berries he blindly plucked from bushes, and on water he cautiously felt for in trickling streams. His once fine clothes became ragged and torn, his skin weathered and scratched, his once bright eyes now dull, empty sockets. His only companions were the memories of Rapunzel, her sweet face, her golden hair, her pure melodic voice. These were the images that played endlessly behind his sightless eyes. He spoke to her in his mind, whispered her name to the wind, hoping against hope that some unseen force might carry his pleas to her. He often sang the songs she had sung from the tower, his own voice hoarse and broken, a fragile echo of her beautiful melodies. Each note was a painful reminder of what he had lost, a desperate prayer for what he longed to regain. The grief was a living, breathing thing, a constant companion that clung to him, heavy and suffocating. He roamed through the wildest parts of the land, far from any human settlement, far from the comforting sounds of civilization. His once noble purpose, his princely duties, all faded into the background, eclipsed by the singular burning ache for Rapunzel. He passed through thorny thickets that tore at his clothes and skin, traversed rocky terrain that bruised his feet, and felt the searing heat of summer sun and the biting cold of winter winds. He often slept curled against the roots of ancient trees, seeking what little shelter they could offer, dreaming of a light he could no longer see, and a love he feared was forever lost. His despair deepened with each passing day. The hope that had once driven him, the fierce determination to rescue Rapunzel, slowly began to wither under the relentless weight of his blindness and isolation. There were moments, brief and terrifying, when he thought he might simply give up, lie down, and allow the darkness to consume him entirely. But then, A flicker of Rapunzel's memory, a phantom touch of her hand, a whisper of her laughter would stir within him, rekindling a tiny, fragile spark of resilience. He had to believe she was still out there, that somehow, against all odds, their paths might cross again. The wilderness, though cruel, also honed his other senses. His hearing became incredibly acute, allowing him to navigate by the sound of rustling leaves, chirping birds, and flowing water. His sense of smell could distinguish between edible plants and poisonous ones, between the fresh scent of an open clearing and the damp decay of a hidden hollow. His touch became his eyes, mapping the textures of bark, the smoothness of stones, the softness of moss. He moved with a cautious grace, a phantom in the forest, guided by a heightened awareness that compensated in a small way for his lost sight. Years passed in this desolate, sightless wandering. The young prince became a man hardened by hardship, his features etched with the lines of sorrow and endurance, his hair streaked with silver. He was a shadow of his former self, yet beneath the ragged exterior, his heart still held the indelible imprint of Rapunzel's love. The pain of her loss was a constant, dull ache, but it was also the fuel that kept him moving, kept him searching. He clung to the faint, almost imperceptible thread of hope that one day he might hear her voice again, feel her touch, and find a way back to the light she represented. He often found himself pausing in clearings, lifting his face to the sun, wishing he could feel its warmth on his eyes, wishing he could once more see the vibrant greens of the forest or the endless blue of the sky. But it was not to be. His world remained a tapestry woven of sound, scent, and touch, all shrouded in an encompassing, silent darkness. The only true color in his life was the golden memory of Rapunzel's hair, forever imprinted behind his closed eyelids, a tantalizing vision he could never truly grasp again. He walked, and walked and walked, drawn by an invisible thread, a silent promise, deep into the heart of the desolate lands, driven by the lingering echoes of love and the faint, persistent whisper of a miracle yet to come. For what felt like an eternity, the prince wandered through the desolate wilderness, a ghost of his former self, guided only by memory and the hollow ache in his heart. The years had sculpted his frame, hardened his spirit, but had done nothing to diminish the profound grief for his lost Rapunzel. The landscape around him remained a constant, featureless darkness, a relentless black canvas upon which only his vivid memories of her could paint any color. Each day was a testament to his endurance, each step a testament to the sliver of hope that still flickered within him, a hope that refused to be extinguished by the endless night. One day, after what could have been years, or perhaps mere months, for time had long since ceased to hold meaning for him, his wandering led him to a particularly barren and unforgiving stretch of desert. The air was dry and scorching, the ground cracked and dusty, and the few hardy plants that managed to survive offered little shade or sustenance. He moved slowly, his feet dragging, his body weary to its very bones, his hope dimming to a fragile ember. He was on the verge of succumbing to utter despair, the thought of simply lying down and letting the desert claim him, growing stronger with each breath. As he stumbled forward, barely aware of his surroundings, a sound, faint and carried on the hot desert wind, reached his ears. It was a melody, a woman's voice singing. At first, he dismissed it as a cruel mirage, a trick of his exhausted mind, a product of his yearning for what was lost. He had often imagined her voice in the rustle of leaves or the whisper of the wind, only to be disappointed. But this sound was different. It was clearer, more distinct, imbued with a familiar sweetness, a haunting purity that sent a shiver down his spine. It was a melody he knew, a song that had once drifted from a high tower window, a song of gentle sorrow and enduring hope. It was Rapunzel's song. A sudden surge of adrenaline, A jolt of disbelief and frantic hope coursed through his veins. Could it truly be her? After all these years, all this suffering? He pushed himself harder, moving towards the source of the sound, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The voice grew stronger, closer, weaving itself into the very air around him, filling the desolate landscape with a profound sense of wonder and the sudden overwhelming possibility of a miracle. He stumbled through the arid land, his breath coming in ragged gasps, his blindness no longer a hindrance but a tunnel, focusing his entire being on the sound. Finally, he stumbled into a small, secluded clearing, and there, beneath the meager shade of a solitary gnarled tree, sat a woman. Her face was weathered by hardship, her hands calloused, but her eyes, though filled with a deep sadness, held a familiar light. Beside her played two small children, a boy and a girl, their laughter like tiny bells. And it was she, the woman, who was singing. She was singing Rapunzel's song. He spoke her name, a raw, choked whisper, a sound barely audible above the wind. Rapunzel? The woman's head snapped up. Her singing ceased abruptly, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief, fixed on the ragged, blinded man before her. She recognized the noble bearing beneath the tattered clothes, the familiar shape of his face, even in its despair. A gasp escaped her lips, and then a cry, a mix of pure, unadulterated joy and profound sorrow. "My prince, my love, is it truly you?" With an outpouring of emotion that had been suppressed for years, Rapunzel rushed towards him, her children momentarily forgotten. She knelt before him, reaching out with trembling hands to touch his face, to confirm the impossible reality of his presence. Tears, hot and fast, streamed down her cheeks, tears for the years of separation, for his suffering, for the overwhelming miracle of their reunion. She felt the scars on his eyes, tracing them with her fingertips, and a fresh wave of grief washed over her, seeing the physical manifestation of Mother Gothel's cruel vengeance. The prince, feeling her touch, hearing her voice so close, felt a dam burst within his own heart. He reached out, his blind hands finding her face, feeling the warmth of her tears, the softness of her skin. "Rapunzel," he murmured again, his voice thick with emotion. "I have found you. I have searched for you, my dearest, through endless darkness." As Rapunzel wept over him, her tears, born of profound love, sorrow, and unbearable joy, fell directly onto his sightless eyes. It was a phenomenon as inexplicable as Mother Gothel's magic, yet utterly different in its nature. Her tears were not of bitterness or despair, but of the deepest, purest affection. And as they touched his scarred eyes, a miracle unfolded. A strange, tingling sensation spread through his face, a warmth that seemed to pierce the darkness. He blinked, and slowly, tentatively, a faint glimmer appeared, then another. The shapes and colors of the world, though blurry at first, began to return. I can see," he gasped, his voice filled with incredulous wonder. The world, once an impenetrable black, was slowly, miraculously coming into focus. He saw Rapunzel's tear-streaked face, radiant with emotion, and then, for the first time, he saw their children standing shyly behind her, their eyes wide with curiosity and a touch of apprehension. The beauty of their faces, the vibrant colors of the desert around him, the blue of the sky, it was overwhelming, a flood of sensory information after years of deprivation. Rapunzel, seeing the light return to his eyes, cried out with renewed joy, embracing him tightly. The children, seeing their mother's profound happiness and the wondrous change in the stranger, slowly approached. The prince, his vision fully restored, gazed at his family, a family he had never known he possessed. Rapunzel explained how she had survived in the wilderness, how she had learned to make a life for herself and their children, the twins, born not long after her banishment. She spoke of the hardships, the constant struggle for survival, but also of the unwavering love she held in her heart, a love that had sustained her through every trial. The prince, looking at their children, his own flesh and blood, felt an entirely new surge of emotion. These beautiful, innocent faces were a living testament to their enduring love, a symbol of hope born from despair. He reached out to them, his heart overflowing, and the children, sensing his warmth and his newfound sight, tentatively stepped forward, allowing him to embrace them. It was a moment of profound reunion, a tapestry of joy woven from years of suffering and unwavering love. The bleakness of the desert suddenly transformed into a place of profound significance, a witness to their miracle. The air, once dry and harsh, now felt soft and welcoming. They spent hours together, sharing stories, catching up on the lost years, their voices filled with the quiet magic of reunion. The prince spoke of his endless wandering, his silent suffering, and the unyielding hope that had kept him alive. Rapunzel recounted her struggle, her loneliness, and the fierce love she bore for their children, which had given her the strength to persevere. The family, once scattered and broken, was now whole, their bonds reforged in the crucible of separation and hardship, their future stretching out before them, finally bathed in the glorious light of love and reunion. With the prince's sight miraculously restored and their family miraculously reunited, the desolate desert transformed from a place of hardship into a sacred space, a witness to their enduring love. The long years of suffering, the endless wandering, the profound isolation, all seemed to recede, replaced by the overwhelming joy of their unexpected reunion. The prince gazed at Rapunzel, her face etched with the wisdom of survival, yet radiant with love, and then at their children, the boy and girl, who mirrored their parents in spirit and grace. He reached out, his newly seeing eyes tracing their features, marveling at the miracle of their existence. Their laughter, once a distant echo in Rapunzel's songs, was now a vibrant, tangible sound filling the air. The immediate relief and happiness were profound, but there remained a journey ahead. The prince knew he could not simply linger in the desert, however sacred the spot had become. His kingdom, his people, still waited. He was a prince, destined to rule, and now he had a family to share his reign with. They needed to return home, to reclaim their rightful place, and to build a life free from fear and the long shadow of Mother Gothel. Though the sorceress was never truly vanquished in the traditional sense, her power over Rapunzel and the prince had effectively been broken by the strength of their love and the miracle of their reunion. Her curses had failed to destroy them, and in their survival, they had found their own greater power. Gathering their meager belongings, the reunited family began their journey back towards the prince's kingdom. It was a long and arduous trek, but this time it was filled with conversation, shared dreams, and the unwavering support of family. The prince, his vision clear and sharp, guided them with renewed purpose. He spoke of his kingdom, of its verdant valleys and bustling towns, of the kind people who lived there, and of the castle that awaited them, a place where Rapunzel and their children would finally know true safety, comfort, and belonging. Rapunzel, holding her children close, listened with a heart full of anticipation, imagining a world far different from the tower or the harsh desert. She felt a deep sense of peace, a quiet contentment that had been absent for so long. The children, curious and wide-eyed, absorbed every detail, their young minds painting vivid pictures of the world their father described. They asked countless questions, their innocent voices echoing their excitement. The prince and Rapunzel patiently answered, weaving tales of their past hardships into stories of hope and resilience, teaching their children about the power of love and perseverance. They shared meals cooked over small fires, slept under star-strewn skies, and found joy in the simple act of being together, finally, as a complete family. Every step brought them closer to their rightful home, and with each passing day, the bonds that had been forged in isolation and suffering grew stronger and deeper. Finally, after many weeks of travel, they emerged from the untamed wilderness and arrived at the borders of the prince's kingdom. The sight of familiar fields, the sound of distant church bells, and the bustling activity of travelers on the main roads brought tears to the prince's eyes. He had returned, not as a broken, blinded wanderer, but as a man made whole, accompanied by the family he had miraculously found. News of the prince's return spread like wildfire throughout the kingdom. The people who had mourned his disappearance for years erupted in joyous celebration. A grand procession was organized to welcome him home, and as he rode through the streets, his beloved Rapunzel by his side, their two beautiful children riding proudly before them. The cheers of the crowd were deafening. The entire kingdom rejoiced, celebrating not only the return of their prince, but also the incredible story of his endurance and the miraculous reunion with his family. Rapunzel, who had known only the confines of a tower and the harshness of the desert, was overwhelmed by the warmth and welcome of the people. She was no longer the frightened, isolated girl. She was a queen, beloved by her prince and cherished by her new subjects. Her once shortened hair had grown back, not to its impossible golden length, but to a manageable flowing mane, a testament to her journey and her strength. Her beautiful voice, once heard only by the birds, and Mother Gothel, now filled the castle halls with joyous songs, shared openly with her loving family and her loyal court. The prince and Rapunzel were married in a magnificent ceremony, a joyous celebration that united their hearts and sealed their fate. They ruled their kingdom with wisdom, kindness, and compassion, always remembering the hardships they had faced and the power of love that had brought them through. Their children grew up strong and happy, surrounded by love and security, never knowing the isolation their mother had endured. And so, the prince and Rapunzel lived happily ever after, their story becoming a cherished tale whispered from generation to generation. A tale of a desperate craving, a cruel bargain, and the lonely life in a high, doorless tower. But most importantly, it became a story of resilience, of unwavering love, and of the miraculous power of tears to heal, to restore, and to bring light back to the darkest of worlds. Their journey reminded everyone that even in the deepest despair, hope can find a way to bloom, and true love, once found, can overcome any obstacle, transcend any distance, and conquer even the most formidable magic. The gentle memory of their journey served as a constant reminder that love, in its purest form, is the most powerful magic of all, capable of weaving threads of happiness even from the most tragic beginnings. Thus, the night slowly settles in, and everything becomes calm and quiet. And our story draws to a close. Let your mind gently drift through the images we've painted together. Feel the comforting stillness of your room, the quiet hum of the night, as the echoes of Rapunzel's tale softly fade. Remember the shimmering golden hair, the brave prince, and the powerful magic of love that brought them together against all odds. Allow these images to linger, soft and warm, just for a moment longer. The outside world is hushed, and you are safe and let the gentle magic of this fairy tale wrap around you like a soft blanket, comforting and serene. Close your eyes, let your breath grow slow and even, and feel the quiet peace settle deep within you. May the memory of this story bring you sweet dreams, filled with wonder and tranquil slumber. Rest deeply and awaken refreshed.